Should we be more concerned with Texas A&M's wide receiver room?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So, ladies and gentlemen, happy Friday. But we have to have a conversation. We do. We have to have a serious one. I was going to do an episode today, and I was going to have it be like a bold prediction type of thing, right? Bold predictions for the season, which, spoiler for next week, that'll be a show next week. But when I was getting ready to do that episode, I had a thought. One of my bold predictions, once again, spoiler, I was getting ready to say, I think Connor Rueben can be in the Heisman race at some point in the season. Well, I'm not telling you my whole bold take because that's going to be something we're talking about next week. But then I got to thinking, okay, as good of a quarterback as you are, as good of a, to be an elite quarterback, you have to have great weapons around you. And then I said to myself, are Texas A&M's wide receivers good enough to help Connor Rueben be in a Heisman Trophy race? And I didn't feel confident saying the word yes. I really did not. So let's have this conversation. Okay. Listen, last season, the three guys who we believe are going to be number 1, 2, and 3 for the Aggies this year, Moose Muhammed, Jahdae Walker, and Noah Thomas, they were on the roster. But you know who else was on the roster? Ainias Smith and Evan Stewart. Of course, Ainias Smith is now soon to be wearing some Kelly green with the Eagles, and Evan Stewart is wearing other colors as well. Not in the NFL, though, at a new school. But here's where my head's at. So those guys, those two, Stewart and Ainias Smith, were incredible receivers. I know Evan Stewart, there were some people were frustrated, some stuff there, but two great players. I still think Evan Stewart's going to get things figured out. I think Ainias Smith is going to be on his way to a really good NFL career. Shifty receivers, great players. Now, you still have these three guys that you had on the roster last year, but you don't have your 1 and your 2. Basically, your 3, your 4, and your 5 are now your 1, 2, and 3. And we see this happen all the time in college programs. The top dogs leave and the new dogs, it's their time to shine. And that's kind of what's going on here for the Aggies with those guys leaving. But the question is are those three guys good enough for this, to call this a really good receiver room? We like Noah Thomas here at Locked On Aggies. We also like Jahdae Walker. And yeah, you guessed it, we like Moose Muhammed a lot. I think these guys can have great seasons. I really do. I think they're all solid receivers. I do have concerns about, is one of them ready to take that leap to the wide receiver conversation? That's definitely a concern for me. And I'm not saying that they don't. I think that, for a while, I thought it was going to be Jahdae Walker who potentially took that step. I'm not saying I'm out on that take, but I do think Noah Thomas showed some serious flashes at the spring game. And then Coach Elko says, listen, hey, he puts on some muscle. He gets a little bit stronger this offseason. This guy, we're talking wide receiver 1, great player in the league. Like, he had a lot of great things to say about Noah Thomas after the spring game. So, and then Moose Muhammed, once again, a player, whatever happened last year was weird. We know that. He's a really good football player. He likes to make flashy plays. He's a great receiver. And I don't know if I see him being the wide receiver 1, but he's to me, and tell me if y'all disagree, I think the battle there is between Jahdae Walker and Noah Thomas. I think Moose Muhammad's a great receiver. He knows his role. I think he's going to be great, but I don't know if I believe he's going to be competing for the 1 spot. So, can Noah Thomas or Jahdae Walker take that step forward and be the guy? And that's what this is all going to come down to. I do believe you need the guy. Do we have a bunch of wide receiver 2s? Potentially. I think to be a really dominant receiver room, everybody's got to have their role. You got to have 1, 2, and 3. I think if you have a 2, 2, and 2, it's problematic. And now listen, the coaching staff will have a 1, 2, and 3, but do these guys end up being a 1, 2, and 3, or do they end up being a 2, 2, and 3, or a 2, 2, and 2? Because I don't know if that's going to get the job done. So I'm not super concerned. I'm not going to sit here and act like I think my concern, I want to make sure I get this across well. My thoughts are pretty simple on this. It's you got a bunch of guys who are really solid receivers. The question is, could they help Connor Rueben in a Heisman campaign? And that's an interesting debate. And then you take it further than who's your top dog, who are your top 3 guys. You take it to the depth conversation. Hey, injuries are going to happen. One of those 3 guys is going to miss a game here and there, maybe a banged up ankle or a little, a concussion, whatever it is. You're going to see guys miss some games. It's football. This stuff happens. So you now kind of have to say to yourself, do we feel good about Cyrus Allen and Micah Tease and, the recent addition, Jacob Bostic? Can those guys take a step forward? Can any of the freshmen? Is Terry Bussey going to play a little receiver? What about Williams? That then becomes the conversation is, do you have enough guys behind them that when injuries happen, and listen, everybody here listening to this show knows injuries are going to happen. It's just the sad reality of the game we all love. Can someone behind them step up? Can someone behind them really help this room? So, I think that when Texas A&M was after that Lambert Smith kid who ended up from Penn State, who ended up going to Auburn, that made me feel a little bit better, because then I was like, okay, you got 4 guys that I think could potentially be a wide receiver 1, that are more WR2s, but they could be WR1s. And now, they weren't able to land him, and they land Bostic. And once again, we talked about Bostic yesterday. If you want to hear my thoughts on Jacob Bostic, head on over to yesterday's episode. So, no, I don't want to make it seem like I'm like, oh, our receivers are awful, we're in trouble. That's not the case. My thought is are our receivers elite? And I'm not sure if that's the case. I think, are our receivers bad? No. Are our receivers elite? No. Are they good? Yeah, I think they're really good. And I would absolutely love to clip this video when Noah Thomas is elite, or Jahdae Walker's elite, or is elite, or perhaps it's Moose. I'd love to clip this and say, hey guys, I'm silly. Look what I was saying on the offseason. These guys are awesome. I was wrong. I'd love to say that. And I think there's a chance of that. But I do once again, ladies, I have thoughts about this stuff all the time. I'll be in the shower. I'll be on the basketball court. I'll doing random stuff, and I'll go, here's a conversation to have. And this is one that kind of popped in my head today. And I was like, man, I think these guys are good, but are they great? And I think sometimes you can win a lot of football games with good, but I think to be a national championship contender, you got to have great. And there are a few positions, offensive line, secondary, maybe receiver, where I think the Aggies have a lot of good, but do they have any great? And that is what takes you, we know the leap from good to great. Great players, that's what gets you there. So that's kind of my thoughts here. And once again, this conversation, I'm not trying to be negative. I already see the comments. I know. I made this joke yesterday about Bostic. I feel like I'm going to be negative in folks' eyes back-to-back days. I get the comments, Andrew, you're being so negative today. And it's like, I don't really think. Today I'm being a little bit negative. I can eat that. But I want to hear y'all's thoughts. If I'm being over the top about this, if y'all don't agree, let me know. Talk me down on this. If y'all think I'm a little more concerned than I should be about this, let me know. But and I don't think concern's even the correct word. I think it's more, they're good. Can someone be great? Can they be great? Because if they're great, Connor Rueben's going to be great, and this offense is going to be great. I think Coach Klein's going to put these receivers in positions to succeed. So here are my 2 concerns to wrap this up. I have depth concerns behind your top 3 guys, and then I have concerns that you have a bunch of wide receiver 2s and maybe not that wide receiver 1 alpha dog that every roster, successful team has. Those are my concerns. So if y'all disagree with me on that, let me know in the YouTube comments. I really want to hear everybody's thoughts there. For segment 2, I've got some interesting conversations, including, hey, for those that are saying I'm being a little bit negative, I've got a really positive one. We're going to talk about why I believe this Texas A&M running back room is going to be elite this season. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about what would it take for Coach Elko to be the SEC Coach of the Year this season. We'll have those two conversations coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday, and I'm happy. And more so than it being Friday, you want to know why I'm happy? Because I get to talk about game time. Great example. My friend Bryce and his girlfriend Sarah, they are going to a Zach Bryan concert tomorrow. We were watching an NBA game, and they were sitting talking about, a week ago, we want to go to the Zach Bryan concert. And where should we get tickets? And they were looking, and I'm like, hey, I'll tell you where you should get tickets. Game Time. The only place you should get tickets. They went, they got their tickets. They got a great deal. They used code Locked On College, got $20 off that order. It is the best app to use. Guess what they now know? They now know exactly where they're going to be sitting and exactly what the venue, what it's going to look like from their seats, thanks to the Game Time app. It is the best place to buy tickets, and it is the only place anyone should ever purchase a ticket to any type of event. Not just, once again, here, concerts, not just sports too. Concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you want to go to, they've got tickets for it. So you have got to go check out the Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets or concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. So a couple conversations we're going to have here, ladies and gentlemen. The first conversation, I want to tell you why I'm in on this wide receiver room being elite. So it's kind of funny. I think as I've talked myself out of buying in on this wide receiver room, I'm also kind of talking myself in to how good this running back room is going to be. Here's the deal. Call me crazy. I can accept it. Been called worse. I think that Le'Veon Moss and Rueben Owens will be one of the best 1-2 punches, not only in the SEC, but in all of college football. I'll let that sit for a minute. I get it. I know they got a good one. Is the kid? I know they got Judkins, and then I think Henderson's the other receiver up there at Ohio State. Yes, I would take that tandem over this tandem, no question there. But I think that this tandem is going to be up there. Not up there, but I'm saying top 10, perhaps at the end of the season. Last year, Coach Klein kind of worked it down to more of a two-back kind of set for Kansas State. There was one guy, and he was the dude, and there's another guy. I think that one or the other, Rueben Owens or Le'Veon Moss, is going to separate themselves as that guy. I had a show last week before, saying how I think Rueben Owens is going to end up taking over. Had a couple people comment and say, listen, I think you're wrong. I think it's going to be Le'Veon Moss, and very well could be the case. I like both of these running backs. And then the two guys behind them, Daniels and even the EJ Smith kid, I like this room, top to bottom. I think this is a room that is going to be one of the better running back rooms in the SEC. I think Rueben Owens is set to take, we say it all the time, the 5-star bump. The 5-star bump is a real thing. We see it happen all the time. You come in as a freshman, you either A, don't play, kind of like what we saw with DJ Hicks, or you play and you leave fans kind of going, okay, he was fine, but can he be better? And I think the second option is where we are all at with Rueben Owens. Played a lot of snaps last year. Did a lot well, and then there'd be a few times where he'd miss a hole. You'd go, man, how'd he miss that hole? It was a touchdown if he goes that way. He went outside and the linebacker was able to get him. Whatever it is, I think that Rueben Owens is going to take that step in the right direction. And then I think Le'Veon Moss. I think how good Rueben Owens is going to be might kind of take some of the shine away from how good Le'Veon Moss is. These guys are great. And I also think the depth is there. We just got done talking about depth when it comes to the wide receiver room and my kind of concerns there. But then you look at this running back room and I go, hey, you've got a bunch of guys who I think could all be really good. And that's a good feeling. Running back, once again, you're getting tackled on every time you get the football. unless you run out of bounds or score a touchdown. So there are plenty of opportunities to get banged up, to get hurt. So I think having depth there is key. And yes, the Aggies definitely have the depth there necessary to be an elite wide running back room. So, and once again, I had a show about this the other day. Y'all can go tune back into that one. And it was about, I think Rueben Owens is going to take over as the guy. I think he did a lot well in the spring game. I've heard a lot of positive things. I think the coaching staff loves him. I think he's an elite running back who last season, made some freshman mistakes, did some things you expect freshmen to do. That's just the reality of playing as a freshman. You kind of got to work through those growing pains. DJ Hicks didn't really get to work through those growing pains last year, knowing he didn't play a ton of snaps like Rueben Owens did. So you're going to have to see DJ Hicks kind of go through those growing pains this year that you got to see Rueben Owens go through last year. So yeah, it could take DJ Hicks 3 or 4 games to kind of settle in to more college football and settle back into all this. So that is definitely going to be interesting. And then I think at the same time, Rueben Owens, having already gone through that, I think it's going to help him be even better this season. And then let's say Rueben Owens doesn't take that step forward. He's a good running back, but he doesn't take that step from good to elite. I think Le'Veon Moss is awesome. I think he's a great running back. I think this room as a whole is in a really, really good spot, top to bottom. I think 1 through 4, you've got players who can come in, take snaps that I feel really good about. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I am in on this running back room. I think they're going to be very good. I think it could be one of the best that Le'Veon Moss and Rueben Owens could be one of the in the SEC and perhaps even college football. Still needs some help. Excuse me, folks. Had a little bit of technical difficulties there, but we are back. So, as I was saying, I think the running backs will need a little bit of help from their offensive line. But for the most part, I think this room is in a really good spot, and I'm excited to see how it pans out. The other conversation I want to have real quick has to do with Coach Elko and his chances of winning SEC Coach of the Year, his first year as head coach of Texas A&M. And looking at those chances, are they high? I'd say no. I'd give him, a 5% chance to do it. I don't think it's a super high chance, but I think it's a chance. So, looking at it, I think that what he would have to do is win 9 football games. And I'll tell you this, I think even with 9 wins, I still think it'd be somewhat difficult to get that done. So, yeah, I think you'd have to take down, you'd have to win 9 football games. That's your only chance. If you win 9 football games as a first-year head coach, I think you have a legitimate chance to be the SEC Coach of the Year. Then I kind of look at this and I go, okay, if he wins any more than 9, I would say it is a lock that Coach Elko will be the SEC Coach of the Year. I think if you want to talk about stretching that out, okay, what's he got to do if he wins 10, lock, 11, lock, 12, obviously that's a lock. But I think he has a chance with 9 wins. You've got a couple new coaches in the SEC, and of course you got DeBoer over there at Alabama. And if he has a good year, you got to think that he's going to kind of get a bump just because it's Alabama. But I wouldn't say the chances are high, but I think that Coach Elko picked the perfect year to be the new head football coach at Texas A&M because it's a year where the schedule is so manageable. We talk about next year's schedule. Next year would not be a fun year to be a first-year head coach. It just wouldn't be. So I do think he picked the perfect year to be a head coach, to be the new head coach. And I think that is going to lead to him having a chance. Is it a high chance? No, but it is a chance. So something to monitor, probably another conversation, a longer conversation for another day. But, if they win 9 football games, Coach Elko has a legit chance knowing it's his first season as the head coach of the Aggies. So we are going to answer a few mailbag questions, a little bit about Jacob Bostic's stat line, the new receiver that came in from Iowa, and then some thoughts on the media perception of this Texas A&M football program. We'll have those two conversations coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying, flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers, you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure and many other fun games. And there's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. So I think my favorite mailbag question for this week has to do with, and it was the yesterday question, was the addition of Jacob Bostic. What do I think about this? I talked about this addition, obviously, all on yesterday's show. So if you missed that, go check out yesterday's episode. Do I think that he's going to have a huge role? I don't. Is he a guy that could maybe catch 15 passes? Sure. I think he'll get some reps in some games against teams, that your non-serious games to open up the season. The coaching staff brought him in for a reason. And that's something I say all the time. We can sit here and we can question decisions. We can question, hey, why'd you go get this guy? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Yada, yada. At the end of the day, there's a reason why Coach Elko does what he does. There's a reason why this coaching staff does what they do. So I think that Jacob Bostic is a guy that's not going to have a huge stat line, but potentially could develop. As I said yesterday, I watched the high school tape. There's a lot of talent there. And potentially, if you're able to figure out, tap into that talent, you could turn him into a great player. Is it this year? I'm not sure. But so I would say my guess for the stat line is it's not going to be one that jumps off the stat sheet at you. But I do think this is a long-term play, an upside guy that, hey, take him, adds depth to your team, played a couple years of college football, and see what happens. So that is my thoughts on Jacob Bostic. Last mailbag question, and this is another fun one, has to do with my perception of the Texas A&M, my thoughts on the way the media is perceiving this Texas A&M football team right now. And I'll tell you, I think it's back and forth. I agree with some media members and I disagree with some media members. I think that there's some people that are too high on Texas A&M. I think it's like the Goldilocks. I think there's people that are too high, too low, and just right. And I think that what people are forgetting, I think, when breaking down Texas A&M's season for this season, I think they're too focused on roster and not focused enough on the schedule. This roster can win 8 football games, even with a tougher schedule. I believe that. But with the schedule that they have, once again, continuing to reiterate this point, playing all of your, the games again that you're probably not going to be favored in, all of them are at home, which you might even be favored in some of them because they are at home. So I think that people are too focused on roster. And once again, I say too focused on roster as if the roster is in a bad spot. I like this roster. I think you have a lot of potential NFL players. Obviously you lost some guys. You lost to Walter Nolan and then Evan Stewart, but you got a lot of former 5-stars. You still got a lot of talent when it comes to blue chip ratio and things like that. So no, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm super concerned about the roster. I think this roster can win a handful of football games. I think it's a solid roster. I think Coach Elko and company have done a great job putting it together. So once again, I think there's some people that are a little too high. I saw a preseason ranking predictions that had Texas A&M at 17. I don't know if I believe that. I think they were going to be in that 23 to 25 range to start the season. So there's some people that are too high, some people that are too low, and I think some people that are just right. But I think Jake Crane, who we had on the show during the coaching search, I think he has a great take on Texas A&M's season. He's perfectly in the middle. I like his opinions on the Aggies this year, but I think the perception, there's lots of different perceptions of this team, lots of different opinions on this football program and the direction it's heading in. But I like what the Aggies got going on. I think they've done a great job in the portal, a great job holding on to players, and a great job finishing the recruiting class. So that's my opinion. I think some people are right, some people are wrong, but this football team can win 8 or 9 football games. They can. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. I really do appreciate it. I hope everybody has an outstanding rest of their day today, and we will see you on Monday.